What's going on, guys? It's Critical Fish, and today I'm back with a new video. It's more of a follow-up to my previous video where I talked about the Xbox ecosystem, the changes to Game Pass, and overall just the future of gaming. I wanted to use today's video to talk about what I learned from you guys in the comment section from last video. And I also wanted to take the time to evaluate if using a PC or using a console is going to be the move, depending on what type of gamer you are going forward. If you don't know me, my name is Critical Fish, and I try to stay critical about the hobby of gaming. I try to look at the industry news, and I personally collect the best of the best items, and I sell the rest. Now, if you enjoy this type of commentary, let me know in the comments. I want to know your thoughts by the time you finish this video. And yeah, I just want this to be a good, productive discussion regarding all things video games. Right off the bat, I will admit I do not have a gaming PC, but I have done my research. I've done my time looking into what the upgrades would be and kind of what those big pulls to getting a PC would be in the first place. So yeah, let's just dive right into this. Let's look at the first category that I have chosen to compare between the PlayStation 5 and PC, and that would be the brand, hardware, and longevity of what you're buying into. Because you're not necessarily just buying hardware nowadays. You might be buying a gaming PC that's worth $2,000, but you might not understand what you're actually buying into in terms of the services that are offered on your PC. You might be buying a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X, but you might not even know what features or games that are releasing onto the system over time. Let's take a quick look at the PlayStation brand as a whole. Right now, PlayStation is sitting at around 60 million PS5s sold. It's right on track with the sales of the PlayStation 4, which, if you don't know, are really strong. Therefore, a lot of people worldwide really love and value the PlayStation 5 as a next generation system. And those people have clearly found an incentive to purchase the system and play games over the course of the past 5 years. I would say PlayStation as a whole has a strong grip on their strategy as a game maker and a hardware creator. When it comes to hardware, it's pretty well known that the console lifespan cycle lasts about 6 or 7 years at a time, and that seems to be the same with the PlayStation 5. There's been some recent news that the PlayStation 6 is kind of deep into development and is looking to be released around 2027 during the holiday period or 2028. And if that's the case, it's going to make the PlayStation 5 a 7-year-old system by the time the PlayStation 6 comes out. Over the past 5 years, just for the PlayStation 5, they have released dozens of exclusives as well as timed exclusives, whether they be first-party releases that eventually release on PC at some point, or paid third-party partnerships where games will stay on the PlayStation ecosystem for anywhere between 6 months to a year to over a year until they release on the PC or the Nintendo Switch or the Xbox systems. One of the best examples I can personally think of is Final Fantasy VII Remake. That is a game that was exclusive to the PlayStation 4 back in 2020. And finally, in 2026, we are seeing that game jump to Xbox systems and Nintendo systems. But for the past 5 years, besides PC, about 2 to 3 years into that time frame, Final Fantasy VII Remake has remained a console exclusive to PlayStation for the past 5 years. This commitment to releasing big IP games over the course of time has been a major reason why I even own a PlayStation system in the first place. One of the first games I ever played on a PlayStation was Uncharted, and guess what? You still cannot play Uncharted on a PC, Xbox, or Nintendo system. You have to own a PlayStation. For the near future, there's a lot more games coming to the PlayStation 5 ecosystem, pretty much including any brand new AAA release that's coming out either from Sony themselves, Xbox, or even just third-party developers like Square Enix or Capcom. And in my eyes, because PlayStation has had that 30-year history of making games as well as providing the hardware, I honestly think that no matter where they go, their ecosystem is very strong in comparison to a general broad PC market where you could buy into Steam, you can download, you can emulate. There's a lot of options there, but I honestly believe in the PlayStation future. Like, I think no matter if they are doing a console or a PC hybrid or a handheld or another VR experience, I think they have the reputation and the history behind them that puts my faith in them as a consumer. Now, for the second category, I'm going to be talking about the games library. And I kind of touched on the idea of this in the last point, but this is very different experiences between PlayStation and PC. Like I said, with PC, you'll be able to download pretty much any game you want that's come out over the past 30, 40 years. Whether that's something from the NES that you can emulate, or N64, maybe old Xbox games, or maybe brand new PC games that are releasing with huge raw power performance requirements, you can pretty much play anything depending on your build. Now, this amount of variety in my eyes is pretty much unbeatable. You literally cannot play other games other than PlayStation games on your PlayStation 5. Again, I think that trade-off comes from being a console and not having a limited amount of experiences in and of itself, and then going to a PC that can literally emulate or play any other experience that's released over the past 30 years. There's also the argument that PlayStation games are now slowly trickling into the PC ecosystem. So if you say a PlayStation game is exclusive, let's say Wolverine, that's coming out next year, it's going to be day one only on PlayStation 5, but in reality, you're going to see it on PC probably a year later, but you never know. Demon Souls, which was a Blue Point PS5 remake, is still only on the PlayStation 5. That's been 5 years, so if you've been waiting to play that on PC, I don't know, but it's really a case-by-case basis. Again, all of this matters when you look at yourself and say, what type of games am I interested in playing? In my eyes, it doesn't really matter if they're all available to you. It matters what you're actually going to download, play, sit at your computer, and enjoy at the end of the day. For this category, though, I'm easily going to give the option to PC. I think PC has the better games library. For the third category, we have the actual game experience. And this doesn't mean the look and feel of the game. It means how you interact with your system to play the game. Are you there day one to experience that on the system, or do you have to wait an unconfirmed amount of time to play that game? It also considers if you're playing on a mouse or your keyboard in comparison to a controller. You know, how are you playing the game? It also considers if you're buying the game digitally or physically. You know, are you someone that collects the cases and the discs over the course of time, or do you just own a massive digital library where you got games at a very cheap or free discount? For me, as a video game player and collector, I really enjoy the experience of still going to a store, buying the physical disc of a game that I'm excited to play, popping that in the system, using my controller, sitting on the couch and playing on a massive OLED TV screen. That's just me, and that's really just preference. But that experience in and of itself, as well as being there day one for really big new titles, is amazing. I'll also add into the fact that most of the time, when games release on a console, they have easy, unified experiences across the board. People will not go through a lot of game crashes if the game has been optimized for console. But on PC, you can also be there at midnight, have the game preloaded onto your system, and when the clock strikes midnight, you can be there to play the game the first second that it releases on your system of choice. There's also the argument that not all PC games or PCs that you've built are optimized for this brand new game that's come out. And so you might be experiencing crashes. You might have to adjust the settings for like 30 minutes at a time. Who knows? But there's just a lot of unknowns when it comes to those big day one releases on a PC. For this category, I'm going to give it to the PlayStation just because it is a plug and play, easy access system that just focuses on how you boot up and start the game really quickly. It is super simple, and I have rarely had complaints about games crashing, games not starting up, games not being available to enjoy, really. This is just a very consistent system across the board, and pretty much every single game that I'm looking at on my rack here has been flawless over the course of time. The next category, which is the hardware and performance of the system. Now, this, I'll just state right off the bat, the winner of this category is PC. With a PC, you can pay as much money as you want and invest into your build to make it look the coolest, you can make it function the best, and you can make games run at insane stats, okay? You can have Cyberpunk in ray-traced environments, 4K, 300 FPS, you've got so many details, it's insane. And I've seen it firsthand, and I've been very impressed with what I've seen before. You just cannot compare that experience with a console. There is kind of a, there's a blend of how much you want to see and how much you really need in terms of performance, but I'm definitely going to give this category to PC. I will, however, make the argument that for the price point, PC is very expensive. You can spend upwards of $1,000 on just the GPU alone, which is just one chunk of your PC that you will use to fund your experience for playing a game. But with a console, for PlayStation 5, you can buy a PS5 for as low as $400 and play Cyberpunk at pretty good stats. I think medium settings across the board at mostly 4K at a locked 60 frames per second. And that's only going to cost you $400 to get that hardware in your house. So there's the argument to be made between, how much do you really need in terms of performance and how much are games actually utilizing the hardware itself. I think honestly, over the course of time, if you start at PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 2 is a huge jump in technology. But when you get to the 3, it's pretty good. When you get to the 4, it's kind of leveling off in some ways. The PS5 is starting to definitely flatten out. And I think if we see a PlayStation 6, the big selling point behind that will be cloud gaming or maybe handheld portability for the games that you've purchased. I really don't think people care about the specs as much, especially when you're looking at something like a PlayStation 5 Pro. The next section is going to be talking about multiplayer and sociability. Now, there's a lot of differences between the PlayStation 5 and the PC experience when it comes to playing games online, playing with your friends, chatting with your friends, sharing games, and stuff like that. With the PC, you can play with your console friends on a PC. You can also use things like Discord to call your friends outside of a video game system, and that translates to all areas on your PC. You can use Discord to share your screen, send files to, stuff like that, and that's kind of outside of the video game experience, but I think it's a great way to communicate and stay in touch with your friends and with the communities of people that enjoy the games. I will also say that PC has the edge when it comes to actually playing with your friends and not just talking to them, because it doesn't cost you any extra money to play multiplayer games on a PC. In contrast, the PlayStation 5 ecosystem makes you purchase PlayStation Plus, which is a premium subscription service that costs you at the lowest, I think, $80 a year. And that gives you access to play multiplayer games that are not free to play. If they're free to play, you can go ahead and jump in and play with your friends. But if I'm going to play something like Battlefield 6, you do have to purchase PlayStation Plus to access the multiplayer portions of your system. And it's just not an argument. You know, you do get benefits with PlayStation Plus, but on PC, you don't have to pay for the online multiplayer outside of your electric bills. I'm definitely giving PC the edge for this one, and it wins in this category. And I touched on this last area in a couple different sections prior, but the last category is the cost and accessibility of your system. The PlayStation 5 has a minimum price point of $400, and that will get you access to the system and then all of the games within its digital storefront. PlayStation Plus gives you access to a lot of different games and online multiplayer for an extra, I want to say $7.99 or $9.99 a month. And you can pay a yearly cost to cut down that price as well. For modern games, a PC will cost you a decent chunk of money. You can build really great builds for a low cost of around $500, I want to say, that can get you up to something like medium settings. But maybe at that price point, you're not getting some of the benefits that a console would. And it's probably worth getting a PC for around $1,000, I would say, in this era of time. You're also not factoring in the cost of a monitor, a keyboard, a mouse, a desk, a lot of other things that you will have to buy if you buy into a PC ecosystem. The one perk is that the game sales vary a lot more on a PC, and you can get very great discounts or even games for completely free on a PC system. I know that Steam runs discounts all the time. I know that third-party sites give you huge discounts on brand new games like CD keys or something like that. And most of the time, you can find a lot more steals and deals with a PC in comparison to a PlayStation system, which will have one unified price at a time for certain games on its digital storefront because there is only one storefront. The comeback to this point is that if you purchase a physical disc playing PlayStation 5, you will have the ability to buy video game discs. And this can be either from your friend, from the local storefront, or from a retail store where they could even be free. You know, you could just borrow a game and put it in your system and get it like that. You won't have to pay money for that or pay as much money for that up front. There's also the choice to sell those discs and physical versions of games over time. You know, if I choose to sell Lies of P, I could just go sell that on Facebook Marketplace for $20-$30 and have that money back instantly. If I buy it digitally, I've already spent that money and I can't get it back. On both systems, you have the ability to rent games through Xbox Game Pass or even PlayStation Plus on PC. And I think that for the value, if you're getting into the ecosystem for the first time, using these services is actually a really good way to test out games, figure out what you really like, play some really great games that are only just a couple years old that are already in the ecosystems, and overall just kind of get a head start on gaming as a whole. If I had these types of subscription services when I bought into a PlayStation around 2014, 2015, that would be a total game changer, because when I was younger, buying games outright, I had no clue what I was into. And something like The Division Ultimate Edition just kind of stood out to me. So I bought that back in the day for $100. You can tell the regret that I have for that. But, you know, if you have a monthly low-cost option to play a bunch of different games, you can really figure out what you like. And I think both systems really benefit from that, whether or not that's a long-term investment. Overall, I'm going to say this is a pretty weird category to judge because, like I said, with a PlayStation, you're not spending as much money up front, but you're probably going to spend more money over time on new games, controllers, accessories for these swappable plates on your system. You might even upgrade to a new system down the line. So it's kind of hard to say in all aspects if a console is always a cheaper experience. A PC might be a one-time $1,000 drop where you get a strong PC, you get the mouse, you get the keyboard, and then you're only spending, dimes, pennies, or small dollars on the actual games that you're interested in playing. It's a hard tell. For now, I'm going to say that console has the ability to be the cheaper system with the cheaper, easier, accessible hardware to get into. If you're starting out fresh in this era of gaming, trust me, you have so many options despite the good and bad news that you're hearing at the end of the day. I think the Xbox is a collapsing brand that's eventually going to rebrand itself into something new and probably go from being a console maker to a third-party publisher of some sorts. But I think the PlayStation brand is here to stay. I think Nintendo is here to stay. And I think the PC market will capture all of the greatness from PlayStation, Xbox, and third-party developers. And I think that is the second best option for gaming if you're getting into gaming for the first time. I think overall the PS5 has been an amazing system for me to use over the past 5 years. It's made me focus on the games rather than the hardware. And I think that despite the system being cool, the best part is that it's been reliable. I've never had to reset it. It's never broken. I've never had to clean it. I don't think about replacing it. The next time I'm going to replace it is with the PlayStation 6. I get the discs day one. I get cool controllers here and there. There's cool live events to watch out for. And overall, the focus is on the games first and foremost. The performance and crashes and system updates are background noise on a console in comparison to a PC. I have played so many games, almost too many games, on my PlayStation system with intent and purpose. And that is really important to me because I'm not one to jump between games. I'm not one to buy games on sale or discounts just because it's a good deal. I get excited to hear about what new games are coming out. I'm excited to try out new games that are on the system. I'm excited to see what's coming out from new developers. I'm willing to try stuff here and there. And overall, I just think that the PlayStation system promotes the idea of being very intentional with what you play. But I want to know what you guys think for this video. I want to know what your thoughts are on the comparison. I want to hear your thoughts on handheld gaming as well. I want to hear what your thoughts are on Xbox going forward. And I want you to just be critical and honest in the comment section. If I've sounded like a fanboy in the video, let me know. I'm definitely willing to change my approach. But for the most part, I think I'm pretty fair with my stances, and I look at this from a very logical perspective. If you haven't seen my other videos before, I do a lot of collection videos. I do a lot of thoughts and opinions on the latest news in the gaming industry, so feel free to like, subscribe, and check out my other videos that I've made as well. I put a lot of effort into everything that I produce just so that you can enjoy your time off when you're watching videos on YouTube. Have a great day, guys, and stay tuned for more. Thank you.